A dozen ways to maximize your health, and you better believe some of the healthiest foods in the entire world are on the list. Welcome to the Exam Room Live, the All-Star Series brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hi, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. Thank you so very much for raising your health IQ with us in more than 150 countries around the world and making the Exam Room one of the most downloaded nutrition podcasts anywhere on the planet today. So here's the deal. For the next 2 weeks, we will be talking to some of the biggest names in the health community, and we begin with an absolute icon. Dr. Michael Greger is here with us today. We're going to be talking about his daily dozens, the foods and the habits you should be establishing every single day to take your health to the next level. And we're also going to be taking your questions when we open up the doctor's mailbag. So if there's a question you would like to ask Dr. Greger, go ahead, post it in the comments or in the chat. We're going to get to as many as we can here on the show today. And with that, we do welcome Dr. Michael Greger to the Exam Room Live. My friend, so good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
I love the fact that you're on the treadmill. 2023 is off on the right foot indeed, my friend.
The question is, why are you not on your treadmill?
I don't know. I think it would be hard to juggle so much, but I got a new one downstairs over the holidays. Maybe we can finagle the studio and make that happen. So the next time you're on, I do you proud.
There we go. There we go.
I'm so pumped that you are here. You are definitely an icon and belong in this starting lineup of all-stars that we've assembled. Here's the deal. We've got Dr. Neal Barnard coming up and Colin Campbell. Yeah, woo. Dr. Bulsiewicz, Dan Buettner from the Blue Zones, Rip Esselstyn, so many others. But you, sir, are starting everything off for us. And it's important that you are, because right now, we have millions of people looking to improve their health as we start this new year. And you're making that a lot easier for them with your daily dozen. So when we're talking about Dr. Greger's daily dozen, what are we talking about here?
Well, this all comes from my book, How Not to Die, which I'm psyched to report last year finally sold its millionth copy. The first half of How Not to Die is just 15 chapters on each of the 15 leading causes of death, talking about the role diet may play in preventing, arresting, or reversing each of our top 15 killers. But I didn't want it to just be a reference book. I wanted to be a practical, day-to-day kind of grocery store guide as to how to do this on a practical level. So that's the second half of the book, where I center my recommendations around a daily dozen checklist of all the things I encourage people to fit into their daily routine. So, for example, greens every day, the healthiest vegetable, dark green leafy vegetables. Berries every day, the healthiest fruits. Legumes every day, like beans, split peas, chickpeas, lentils. A quarter teaspoon of turmeric, tablespoon of ground flax seeds, the best beverages, best sweeteners, how much exercise to get every day. Just trying to inspire people to include some of the healthiest of healthy foods into their daily routine. And so it's available on a free app on iPhone and Android called Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. It's just a simple checklist. You can track your progress day in, day out. And in fact, we now have a Daily Dozen challenge going at nutritionfacts.org, encouraging people to try it out for a day, see if they can nail the dozen, and then post about it with the hashtag Daily Dozen Challenge. Hashtag Daily Dozen Challenge. And in hopes, again, just inspiring people to start their year off a little healthier.
There it is. And we made that really easy. There's a link to take that challenge right now in the show description or in the episode notes. So click on it, get started. What are you waiting for? Let's go ahead and open up the doctor's mailbag here and take some questions. We already have a lot of people wondering about some specifics here with the Daily Dozen. We have somebody here wondering, we were just talking about exercise. So let's skip ahead from the food for just a second. Somebody is wondering, how much exercise should we be getting every day? Do we need to spend hours in the gym?
So first thing it's important to realize is that, you can't outrun a bad diet. For example, a moderately obese person doing moderately intense physical activity, like, biking or very brisk walking, might burn off approximately 350 calories an hour. But, most drinks, snacks, and other processed junk are consumed at a rate of about 70 calories per minute. So therefore, it only takes 5 minutes of snacking for someone to wipe out a whole hour of exercise. That's why you can see how the calories inside of the equation is so much more important than the calories out. Having said that, of course, exercise has a bevy of benefits aside from weight loss. And so certainly encourage people to exercise. It's one of the daily dozen, in fact, encouraging people 90 minutes, ideally, of moderately intense exercise like brisk walking, or 45 minutes of vigorous exercise a day maximizes longevity. That's my next book, which will be published in December, on how not to age. And so if you look at the longevity research, you know, 15 minutes of walking is better than none. Any amount of exercise is better than none. But 30 appears better than 15, 45 appears better than 30, 60 appears better than 45, and 90 appears better than 60. And that was the max they looked at. They couldn't find enough people to actually follow over time who actually exercise more than 90 minutes a day. So it's possible it goes up from there, but the best available balance of evidence we have is you get increasing longevity benefits up to that maximum. So it doesn't mean you have to do that much every day, but I just want to, say it like it is. This is what the science says. Any exercise is better than none. And ideally, we should try to bump it up 90 minutes a day, moderate intensity.
All right. So you've got a new book coming out in December, How Not to Age. Let me tell you something. That is an instant million copy seller right there. That is going to captivate everybody's attention, my friend.
So no aging till December, then I got you covered.
All right, let's take a question here from, we got a good question here from Michelle, kind of to the longevity aspect. She's wondering whether vegans actually live longer. She said she's been having a conversation with her friends about that recently.
Yes. So it actually depends on what you eat. So there's yes, indeed, there's greater longevity among those who eat plant-based diets, including vegetarians and vegans. But when Harvard's done these plant-based eating scores, this all started with the PREDIMED study, this large study of the Mediterranean diet. They came up with a pro-vegetarian score, which gives you points for eating any plant foods and subtracts points for eating any animal foods, and found that people have higher pro-vegetarian scores live longer and have lower risk of chronic disease. No big surprise. But those you get points for French fries and potato chips and Coca-Cola, and because those are technically plant foods. What Harvard researchers did is they came up with a healthy plant-based index and an unhealthy plant-based index. And they found, and so same thing, you get points, but you only get points for healthy plant foods, like whole grains and fruits and vegetables, beans. And you actually get negative points for either meat, eggs, or dairy, or for processed junk food. And when you do that, you see this extraordinary longevity benefit, significantly less chronic disease. But if you eat an unhealthy a plant-based diet, so you're still minimizing your intake of meat, eggs, and dairy, but you've replaced it with just lots of vegan donuts, you don't see the same kind of advantage. You actually don't get a shortening of life unless you start piling on the animal foods, but still you miss out on some of the advantages of plant-based eating if you're eating the ultra-processed stuff. So I encourage people to center their diets around whole plant foods, minimizing intake of meat, eggs, dairy, processed junk, maximizing intake fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, basically real food that grows out of the ground. These are our healthiest choices.
Let's take a question from Kiana here. We're seeing more cases of the flu and other respiratory illnesses, obviously still in the pandemic here. Kiana is wondering what vegetables, Dr. Greger, you believe are the healthiest and the best for the immune system.
Well, there was a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial of garlic published in 2001 that found that those randomized to garlic actually not only had significantly lower risk of getting an upper respiratory tract infection like common cold, but 75% decreased duration of illness. So even those that did get the cold I believe it cut the incidence of cold by like half. But if you did get a cold, it lasted 1.5 days instead of 5 days on average. So, so really tremendously significant in terms of improvement. And you say, well, wait a second, 2001. What about all the randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trials done since then? There haven't been any. Why? Because who's got big garlic if there's just no money to be made? So really, that's all we have is that one study, but that suggests that eating garlic may improve one's immune system. We do have lots of studies showing that you can boost vaccine immunity. You can boost efficacy of vaccines in terms of increasing your antibody titer. The same vaccine being randomized to various specific fruits and vegetables. But in general, the message is just eat healthier, eat more plant-based. It'll boost immune function across the board. This has been shown for influenza, been shown for the common cold, and has now been shown for COVID. Now that we have data, there was, again, Harvard researchers, hundreds of thousands of people found that those who are eating plant-based not only significantly less likely to suffer a severe course of COVID-19, actually significantly less likely to get infected in the first place. This is not just because of comorbidities. This is after controlling for things like weight and diabetes and heart disease, high blood pressure, things that increase your risk. So, of course, those eating plant-based can potentially reverse all those conditions. No wonder they're less likely to get and suffer seriously from COVID. But no, even put all that aside, still have a significant advantage, suggesting that there's an immune boosting effect.
All right, let's take a look at something else that's on the power plate. We're talking about vegetables there. Let's shift over to beans, good for the heart, and pretty much everything else. Rebecca, though, is wondering which are your healthiest beans?
Oh, wow. So they're all good. And so the answer to these kind of questions are whichever bean you'll eat the most of. So seriously, I mean, there's so little difference between them that it's the one that you're actually going to enjoy. So if you really love hummus, you really love chickpeas, well, then just, look, eat your chickpeas. But if you were really agnostic, like really didn't matter which kind of bean you were going to put in whatever dish, and you're like, well, I just want the best bean, then probably there are these little dark, what we call beluga lentils, because they kind of look like caviar. They're really small black lentils. That probably has the most kind of bang for your buck in terms of nutrition. And the bonus, they cook super easily. Like you can just, kind of like boil them like pasta. You don't have to, pre-cook them or cook them for hours or stuff. In fact, they get mushy if you cook them too much, which is fine if you're making miso soup or something, but or lentil soup. But so yeah, that would probably be my legume pick. But as you'll find out when you talk to Dan Buettner about the blue zones, it doesn't matter where what kind of longevity region you live in, they're all surrounding their diet around a plant protein source, some kind of legume, whether it's black beans in Costa Rica or white beans in the Mediterranean or soy foods in Okinawa. And so pick a bean you love and think there's probably, I don't know how many there are. There's certainly dozens. Keep exploring until you find some you love.
Pick a bean, any bean. I mean, you can even do 5-star or a 5-bean chili, 10-bean chili. Just throw them all in there and just get all the benefits. You know what I mean? Just get them all.
One bean that it's been a few years now, but it was a new bean to me. I was speaking in Greece and had gigantes for the first time.
What is that?
Gigantes are the biggest beans. They're massive beans. And they serve it like a side dish there. They take forever to cook, but it's a totally different bean experience because they're like 2 beans. That's your whole mouthful. So it's like a centerpiece of the meal. Very, very cool. I haven't had those in a while. I should get some more of them. They're like super huge kidney beans, but 5 times the size.
A totally different bean experience. Man, I got to get my hands on some of those bad boys. That sounds amazing. Yeah. Let's take a trip out to Helena, Montana, and a question from Cruciferous Kim at 11:46. She got in early. She says a friend claims that dairy helps to settle the stomach after eating a greasy meal. Is there any truth to this?
Huh. Well, first of all, I love your name, Cruciferous Kim. Well, so I mean, the closest I can think of is the dyspepsia research. So dyspepsia is kind of this upset stomach that you can certainly get after eating a greasy meal. And the only thing that I can think of that actually helps is carbonated water, so like seltzer water. I have a video about that, and I think that showed that it significantly improved dyspepsia. I did not run across any evidence suggesting that milk helps.
Speaking of fluids here, Della wants to know how much water should we be drinking every day? I know beverages are among your daily dozen there.
Oh, absolutely. So it matters. It matters on the ambient temperature. It matters on your exercise level. But I do have a suggested amount. This is assuming. So the Institute of Medicine has come out and said and it gave a recommendation for amount of water, but that includes water in both beverages and food, and we get a certain amount of food every day. So, and it's different for men and women. So my recommendations are based on the Institute of Medicine. This whole 8 cups a day thing, ironically, actually goes back like a century ago, based on a single person who measured his sweat and pee. And so if you actually follow back all the medical citations for people say 8 glasses a day, all goes back to this one dude. So since then there's been better research, and so that's kind of how the recommendation came out. And I encouraged 3 beverages primarily. Water is the best beverage. And then if you're looking for something caffeinated, green tea, also matcha tea, which is just powdered green tea, where you actually drink the tea leaves themselves, white tea, it all comes from the same plant. And if you're looking for a caffeine-free option, best herbal tea, probably hibiscus tea. Though you'll, in my new book, I talk about some of the benefits of a green rooibos tea, which is kind of unoxidized red rooibos tea, and chamomile. So there's benefits of those as well, but yeah, hibiscus significantly reduces blood pressure, and which is a leading killer risk factor in the United States.
I noticed coffee wasn't necessarily on that list. A lot of coffee drinkers out there. Talk to us about what it is you know about coffee and whether it is good for you or maybe a little bit detrimental to your health.
Oh, well, this is I talk about in How Not to Die, I talk about the benefits of coffee for the liver, mind, brain, in terms of reducing one's risk of liver disease, Parkinson's, and so liver disease, Parkinson's, and a third ailment. This book was written a long time ago.
It's in the book. We can come back.
It's in the book. But there are some people that shouldn't drink coffee. Can increase one's risk of urinary incontinence, glaucoma. Even if you have a family history of glaucoma, might not be good for you. But coffee is a beneficial beverage. But there's just an opportunity cost. Every cup of coffee is a lost opportunity to drink something even healthier, which is a cup of green tea. And so that's why I encourage people to drink green tea. But coffee is a healthy beverage, and in fact, is actually featured in one of my chapters in How Not to Age.
Oh, okay. That's a tease right there, my friend. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Lucy has a question. A lot of people don't like to drink their coffee black. They don't like to drink their tea straight. They like a little bit of sweet in there. So if somebody's looking for a healthy option when it comes to a sweetener, what's something that you might suggest?
Depression. That's what the third one was for the, liver, mind, and brain. So, so the mind being depression. So yes, coffee has been shown to help depression. Okay, sorry. And then in terms of sweetener, so the healthiest sweeteners are so-called green light sweeteners. These are whole plant foods. So the healthiest sweet things are fruit and, sweet potatoes and, where you get all the fiber and all the wonderfulness there. Now, of course, that doesn't really, and so like if you're baking, you use something called date sugar, which is not really sugar, it's just dried pulverized dates. It's a whole food. All the fibers there, nothing's lost. In my cookbooks, I have recipes for date syrup, which again, just taking dates and turning them into a sweetener without adding anything bad or taking anything good away. But because of all that fiber, it doesn't really work in beverages. It'd make your tea a little lumpy. So, so there's no really beneficial sweetness, although I guess kind of blackstrap molasses has enough minerals that you could argue that's healthy, but it really strong taste. So I couldn't imagine it really being used in most beverages, though you could use it in cooking. So then we're really just down to, okay, what are like the least harmful sweeteners out there? And so that would probably be something called erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol, but unlike something like sorbitol, it is absorbed into your system, so it has less kind of a diarrhea quality if you take too much, though you certainly can. There is an upper limit. And it's possible in the future something like allulose, which is a rare sugar, may be given a clean bill of health, although my latest video on the subject, it kind of ended saying it's still a little too early to tell. So erythritol would probably be the winner at this point.
We mentioned soy in passing a little bit earlier. Trey at 1205 has a great question, looking for a brass tacks kind of answer. Trey writes, I would like to know once and for all about breast cancer and soy, specifically triple negative. I've had triple negative twice, and now I am petrified to have any type of soy. What can you tell us there?
Yeah, soy is misunderstood, right? People don't understand there's two types of estrogen receptors in the body, alpha and beta. The phytoestrogens, like the ones in soy, bind to the beta receptors, where our own estrogen binds preferentially to the alpha receptor. And so the effect on of soy on different tissues depends on the ratio of alpha to beta receptors. So estrogen has positive effects on some tissues, negative effects on others. So for example, estrogen is good for the bones, but bad for the breast. So ideally what you'd have is kind of what's called a selective estrogen receptor modulator, where it has estrogenic effects in some tissues, anti-estrogenic effects in other tissues. And that's exactly what soy phytoestrogens are. Soy appears to lower breast cancer risk. That's an anti-estrogenic effect, but at the same time reduces menopausal hot flash symptoms, where that's a pro-estrogenic effect. So with soy, you get the best of both worlds. So we should eat legumes, soy or other beans, chickpeas, lentils every day. There's been about a half dozen studies following thousands of breast cancer survivors, and those breast cancer survivors, and this is, estrogen receptor positive or negative tumors, they overall, we throw it all together in what's called a meta-analysis that compiles all the studies. Those that breast cancer survivors who eat soy tend to survive longer and have lower breast cancer recurrence rates, significantly lower risk of the cancer coming back compared to breast cancer survivors who don't consume soy. And this is apart from the breast cancer preventive effects, where women who eat soy, particularly in adolescents, have between 30 and 50% lower risk of getting breast cancer in the first place.
All right, let's take a question here from Video 1000 Nights. We get this one from time to time. It's an interesting one. What do you suggest, Dr. Greger, I do if I'm always hungry after eating a whole food plant-based meal that has a lot of fiber in it? How can you help somebody out like that?
Well, so it's possible you're just not getting enough calories. And so this happens a lot right when people initially switch to eating whole food plant-based, is they have kind of an idea of how much a meal is, based on how they've lived their whole life. So they look down at a plate and they say, oh, that's what supper is, this much food, this much volume, this much weight of food. But you cannot eat the same amount of food you were eating before because it's so calorically dilute. There's so few calories per cup, per pound in healthy foods that you'd actually, if you actually, do a dietary record for the day, you find out, oh my God, they're like getting 600-700 calories a day. That's like a starvation diet. Of course you feel hungry. Oh my God, you're like starving yourself. And so that's why you have to eat more food. Now you say, well, wait a second, I get full. What do you mean eat more food? I'm already stuffed. Well, then you may have to eat more frequent meals. And if you find yourself losing too much weight, you can start adding calorically dense foods in, like dried fruits and nuts and seeds and nut butters, smoothies, where you can pack more calories in a smaller space. But I would, just encourage you to eat more frequently throughout the day. And that's the wonderful thing about eating whole food plant-based. You can eat as much as you want. So it's not like, oh, I already had, breakfast. I got to wait till lunch. No. Oh my God. Have an apple. Have a, microwave a sweet potato. This is, eat all you want. This is, because you're just piling on good nutrition.
I mean, that's food paradise, right? When you tell somebody that they don't have to worry about counting calories anymore or any type of crazy scale that they have to weigh out everything before it is that they eat. It's just like eat the healthy foods and you're good to go. I think that Dr. Greger, is part of why eating this way is so sustainable for so many people. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's, diets don't work by definition because, going on a diet implies at some point you're going to go off a diet, right? Permanent weight loss requires permanent dietary change. I mean, healthier habits just have to become a way of life. And if they're going to be lifelong, you want them to lead to a long life. Thankfully, the single best diet proven for weight loss just so happens to be the safest, cheapest way to eat for the longest, healthiest life. That's really kind of the bottom line theme of my book, How Not to Diet, which goes through all the weight loss, centering on whole food plant-based and what you can do to accelerate body fat loss beyond that.
All right, let's see if we can squeeze a few more in here with a couple of minutes that we have left. Kamari at 1221, is it more important to buy local or to buy organic?
Ooh. It's probably not that important to do either in terms of one's health. So in How Not to Die, I talk about a modeling study suggesting that if Americans on average just ate half of Americans just ate a single more serving of fruits or vegetables every day, we would prevent 20,000 cases of cancer every year. That's how powerful produce is. But because we're talking about conventional produce, pesticide-laden produce, the extra pesticide burden on the American public would cause 10 cases of cancer. So overall, we would just prevent 19,990 cases of cancer, right? That gives you a sense of the tremendous benefit from fruits and vegetables versus the tiny bump in risk. Now you say, wait a second, why accept any risk at all? Why not get all benefit, no risk by choosing organic? Great. But we should never let concern over pesticides prevent us from stuffing our face for as many fruits and vegetables as it possibly can. And in terms of eating local, people may not understand that, just because, so fresh is great, but sometimes frozen, for example, frozen berries, frozen greens can actually be, frozen the day of picking, and actually contain more nutrition than, so-called fresh produce, which, may have been sitting on the shelf for a week, losing nutrition every day. So, yes, look, if you have a garden, you can get fresh local, right then and there. That's fantastic. But, the fact that we can get fruits and vegetables year round wherever we live on this planet, thanks to the modern world, that's so the fact, if you were just eating local, are you going to find, blueberries in the winter? In a lot of places, you may not be able to, but that's why we have global trade to get you nutrition anywhere, anytime, so you can stay maximally healthy.
And speaking of maximizing, Kamaria also with a follow-up question wanting to know about maximizing nutrient absorption, specifically when it comes to legumes and vegetables. What are some spices or some things that we can kind of throw in there with those foods to really make sure that we're reaping all the possible benefits?
One thing that comes to mind is carotenoid nutrients like beta carotene, lycopene. These are fat-soluble nutrients, and so need fat for maximal absorption. And so throwing some, instead of just adding salsa to your, canned beans and corn tortillas, adding some salsa, tortillas, beans, and a little avocado will actually help you get more lycopene from that red pigment in tomatoes into your bloodstream than if you hadn't had the avocado, even eating the same amount of tomatoes. Same thing with a salad. You get more beta carotene, for example, absorbed into your system from the carrots in that salad if you sprinkle some pumpkin seeds on top. It doesn't take much. And of course, I encourage people to eat whole food sources of fat. But that would indeed, otherwise you're, flushing a lot of that nutrition out the other end. And, you paid for that salad. You want to maximize all that salad going into you. Of course, having said that, some of the benefit of these nutrients is actually our microbiome, our good gut bugs. And if we don't absorb those nutrients, guess who gets to benefit from them? Potentially our microbiome. And so even if we don't absorb something, it still may benefit us way down to the end of our large intestine.
All right. And really quickly, Ralph is tuned in on Facebook right now, wondering how many beans or how much beans we should be eating every day. What's your recommendation?
So I agree with the American Institute for Cancer Research, suggesting that we should eat a serving of either legumes or whole grains at every single meal. So that's a half cup. And so it doesn't have to be just beans, like beans out of a can. That's certainly easy and cheap and convenient. But, it can be bean dip or lentil soup or hummus or, any way you want to have your legumes. Ideally, 3 servings a day.
There it is right there. See, what you've been doing for the past half hour is hitting health home runs. And that is why you are batting leadoff for our All Stars of Health series. Thank you so much for your time, my friend. This has been fantastic.
So happy to be here. Keep up the good work and looking forward to connecting throughout the year.
Absolutely. And look, there's a link right now to take the Daily Dozen Challenge in the episode notes or show description. Click on that, sign up, get the free app, just get going, maximize your health, take it to the next level as we enter this new year. And also pick up How Not to Die. We talked a lot about that as you're waiting for How Not to Age to come out a little bit later on this year. How Not to Die, available right now at your local book retailer and on Amazon. Dr. Michael Greger, my friend, fantastic as always. Enjoy your treadmill.
And you can also just go to your library and get it.
There it is. So many ways to get healthy, my friends. Appreciate your time, sir.
Bye.
All right. So Dr. Greger kicking us off today. Tomorrow, Dr. Neal Barnard will be here. He is our next all-star up in the lineup. Then we have Dr. Will Bulsiewicz will be here on Thursday, Rip Esselstyn on Friday, and then starting next week off with a huge bang, Colin Campbell will be here. He will be our all-star of health batting lead off, easy for me to say, next Monday, plus Cyrus Kambata from Mastering Diabetes, Dr. Gemma Newman, the plant-powered doc, Dan Buettner from the Blue Zones, and Dr. Alan Desmond, who continues to lead a plant-based diet revolution. He, too, will be with us next week here on the show. So every day, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, right here on YouTube and on Facebook is the place to join us to ask your questions live, or, of course, subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your shows, and get the replay right there. And when you subscribe, please also leave a 5-star rating. But for today, my friends, that is all the time that we have. Happy New Year. Welcome to the All Stars of Health series. Thanks for hanging out with us, roomies. Thank you one more time to Dr. Michael Greger for being here and to the crew behind the scenes for making the magic happen. Thank you, guys. And you exam roomies, so many great questions today. Can't wait to do it again tomorrow. For everybody here at the Physicians Committee, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. We will talk to you again in, a little under 24 hours. But until then, keep it plant-based.